character, isn't it?
Yeah, this is pretty much it. Yeah.
What do you do for Toastmasters meetings? Are you always there?
I'm late a
Late?
lot of times. Late a lot of times.
That's the trouble with you being so busy. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. Hey,
I'm
so
not that busy. I get daydreaming. Like I'm terrible daydreaming. I'm off in La La Land all the time. God, people
so,
gotta remind me when it's my birthday, for crying out loud.
so in the middle of the Kiwanis, in the middle of the Kiwanis meeting, you suddenly put your hand up and they go, "Dave, what did you want?" And he says, "Oh, don't remember." Seemed important at the time.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, last night I was the caller, so I was the caller for all 5 Sundays,
I
and Kiwanis TV Bingo. That was awesome.
Yeah. As always, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Trouble it. So, how many winners did you have?
Only one each game. 6 games, 6 winners. Wow. I was in the zone, man. I was in the zone. That's like throwing a no-hitter for a pitcher.
That's unusual, isn't it? 6.
Very, very much so, because the two Sundays prior to that, we had huge amounts of winners, like 10 in the first game, which meant that only the winners would only get about $50 each.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine actually won last week, not this week, but last week, and she won, and I was going to take her out for lunch. She's an old member. She's a tried and true member of our club, and moved to St. Catharines to join the other club. So I was going to take her out for lunch for all the help she gave me when I was president. But she won the week before last, so I'm telling her, "You got the money. You're taking me out."
All right. Okay. So, so interesting. All right. Well, I'm glad to see that all went well. So I have a question. That was raised by one of the newspapers there. So, who's driving these governance reform in Niagara?
That's pretty interesting. Well, it's obviously the big mayors, right?
Yeah.
Welland, Niagara, and St. Catharines. Now, of course, there's all this baloney about them trying to build fiefdoms. There's a lot of there's a lot of really kind of shallow ideas about politicians here that they, it sounds funny, of course, asking politicians asking the political body to reduce the amount of politicians here is like turkeys voting for Thanksgiving. And that's pretty funny. And yeah, and we see that there is an effort among in Thorold and Niagara-on-the-Lake to reduce the size of their councils. They feel they're too large. But overall, the people who are driving the effort for amalgamation are the 3 big mayors, and Campion, Diodati, and Cisco. Now, there's got to be a reason why they're doing that. I don't think they all have political associations with. I think probably the Welland mayor and Niagara mayor feel themselves conservatives, but I don't know about Cisco and St. Catharines. So there's got to be a practical reason why the big mayors are after this. The undercurrent, of course, is that the provincial government is sticking their nose in. It's Doug Ford's idea and his buddy's idea, and they're pushing it along. Oh, hello, Nancy, long time no see. Yeah. How's things in Cleveland?
Yeah. Well, any no kings out there? Anyway.
Yeah. So who's pushing this along?
Well,
now it seems like there is a lot of hackles up and resistance to this, and I don't know why that is. And I think it's because of the way Bob Gale brought it on, like gangbusters. So everybody just got their hackles up and said no, and what about this? And the whole scared of change kind of look that everybody gets when you need change but nobody wants one.
Yeah. I guess. I guess. You see, the thing is, of course, um, nobody, nobody like Diodati's going to vote themselves out of a job, are they?
No, and
Right?
he stands to do fairly well. Although I will point out that Chris Regis mentioned that he may be the one that's least likely among the mayors to find a place. And he had reasons for that. I don't remember what they were, but he might be the most vulnerable of the mayors in an amalgamation for
I
some reason
don't think.
when it comes to voting anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily would be the case if they merged to what. Well, okay, if they merged
I
to
mean,
a
thereafter
single.
when you have to be elected, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, yeah. If they merge to a single municipality, if it's the whole of the Niagara region, I think Diodati is as well known in Niagara as any of as Bob Gale or anybody else who has, you know. Bob Gale obviously probably won't be standing again, I wouldn't think. As Crater or Gale or anybody else who's been a regional politician. Um, I don't know. There'd be a lot of in the one city model. There'd be a lot of competition for those three spots for Niagara Falls. In the four city model, he's going to get way more votes than the mayors of. Well, I don't even think they're going to go that. If they went the four city model, they can't go back. They can't include Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake, and Fort Erie because Fort Erie is no longer part of that riding.
I don't know. I don't know what their plans to do, but Bob got things rolling. As much as everybody complains of how he did it, he did bring the issue up. Now you
Yeah,
have a lot of angst out there, a lot of talk, and a lot of murmuring, but it is something that was put on the back burner. Maybe that would be a solution to our incredibly high taxes.
I
Maybe
don't
that
think it
would be a
will
way
be.
of doing it. So he just reawakened it. Whether or
Yeah,
not it's a good idea, whether or not it has merits, but he did reawaken the idea and got people talking about it.
yeah. And to be quite honest, I'm not so sure it necessarily solves anything. If there was one model I go for, it's the single municipality model. But I think that our regional council must be elected. I don't like the Bob Gale plan where they're not elected. That you remove all the elected politicians and just put the mayors up. And that's the worst possible plan you can come up with.
I'm not so sure it was that simplistic.
I,
Basically, I
I
think
grant
it
you.
was an initial sort of an initial position, and thereby thereafter negotiated or settled in a different way.
Yeah,
But it'll have to go to someone else's now. Bob got the ball rolling. It really backfired on him, but now because his character is now besmirched, that was a turn that I didn't expect at all, and unfortunately, probably Bob's political career may be ruined now because
yeah.
how do you crawl back from that when everybody's pointing at you and
Well,
thinking
at the
you're
moment, the best thing he could
Nazi
do
like
is
person?
yes, the best thing he can do right now is step down. Right?
I don't know, man. He served that community very well. I thought.
I'm
I
not
mean,
denying that.
like he's not a politician. Like he's not a politician's politician. So that's what I like about him. You know what I mean? He loses patience with the diplomatic speak and lots of verbiage that sounds good but doesn't do anything.
Hmm.
Anybody can talk. A lot of people could talk like that really well, but I mean, when he looks at stuff and you talk, if you ever like, I've rarely talked to him, maybe 10 times since high school, for
Yeah.
very short periods of time. But when I read about his stuff in the paper and whatever he does, like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're not exactly the best diplomat out there, but you're sure getting stuff done or
Yeah.
trying to get
Oh,
stuff done.
what I'm saying about though is the way I foresee this is because of the difficulties, Bob Gale's likely to step down for this term.
Yeah, that's a sad thing. It's a sad thing that he might have
And
to
then
do that.
we'll see what happens in 4 years' time.
Yeah, it's a real shame. It's indication of how ignorant we all are, that we have to besmirch a man's character because he collects historical items.
Yeah.
And then not
agree.
only that, when that argument against him, when his opponents point that to him and that argument begins to weaken, they then bring up other aspects of his collection and question the validity of any of that, which was just plain stupid. And then we did read the hit piece last week on Bob Gale, or not on Doug Ford, the hit piece on Doug Ford, where they have a perfectly good article about how Canadians are not feeling so well about themselves, feeling low, but they keep pushing the Doug Ford thing in there to make that particular scientific article a hit piece on Doug Ford. I mean, this stuff has just got to end, right?
Yeah. Doesn't serve any real purpose, does it?
No. In fact, you're actually helping. If you're an opponent of Doug Ford, you're helping him by being so petty.
Yeah. Okay. Gary's saying it begs to differ from you, Wills. I know 50 million reasons why it didn't serve us well.
Who, Bob? Oh, okay. That's good. That's good, Gary. That's good. 50 million. All I need is a couple, but it doesn't matter. I don't know whether I know he wasn't a great politician because of the way in which he approached things, but in any case, there might be many reasons, pro or con, whatever, but to besmirch his character because he had a collectible piece is not the way to go. And same thing with Doug Ford. I've got lots of issues with Doug Ford, but the way in which they characterize him is not doing anybody any favor. It's not doing themselves any favor either.
Yeah.
So that's my big problem, Gary, is how they characterize people and both sides, all sides of the political issue. And aside from that, though, I don't know who really is pushing the amalgamation thing. It is probably the province, and they say that, and with their proxies sort of in the Niagara region, the proxies being, of course, Jim, Campion, and Cisco. And we don't know how many of the other politicians think that that's a good idea or not, but
well,
I don't know. I just don't know where we're going to go from here. It just seems that there's just too much fear of change to make any change possible.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. The NDP's got a new leader. His name is Avi Lewis. Do you know it? Have you heard of him before?
I have not heard this name before, although he's supposed to be a prominent figure in the NDP party. Well, he comes from a good pedigree. His grandfather was David Lewis, who ran the NDP for Canada back in the early 70s, and his father was Stephen Lewis, who was the NDP leader for Ontario for many years. And I'm telling you, if you listened, like David Lewis or Stephen Lewis was one of the most remarkable public speakers I've ever heard. He will go, here you are, and among the NDP at conventions, and I saw him speak at Brock, and maybe more than once, but I remember the one time clearly. He was at Brock, so you can imagine the place is full of working guys, working people, right? And he speaks like an academic. He speaks like a professor of anthropology or archaeology or philosophy, professor of philosophy. He speaks, uses words that are 10 miles long, and yet you understand every word he says because the context in which he uses those words, you can understand what he means by using them. He does two things when he does that. He accomplishes two things. He does not talk down to you. He elevates you higher. He brings you up to his level. He invites you to a higher place, because the way in which he uses the words, some of which you've never heard, practically, that you can understand exactly what he's saying in the context. So he speaking to you as a peer, man to man, man to woman, whatever, and he's using very high elevated speaking techniques. Is an excellent speaker, superb. Now, one thing I noticed in this article, which I just I thought was dumb, was they said that Avi Lewis was now the third Jewish leader of the of a major political party or something like that. His grandfather being the first. What the heck difference does that make? Why do they even put that in there?
Yeah.
Like, is that any relevant? Is that relevant to anything?
Yeah. Okay, so he's not currently a member of parliament, although he ran federally in 21 and 25 and placed third each time in those positions. So he's, in order to become a true leader of the NDP, he needs a seat in parliament.
Yes, he does, but he's not. According to this article, he's not too much of a hurry to get it. Right now, he has to reestablish and rebuild the NDP party. That is his very first priority, is to rebuild the NDP party, which is at one of its lowest points of all time.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
chances are at the moment is if an NDP MP stood down to allow him to stand, there's a possibility NDP could lose that seat. There's no safe seats for the NDP right now.
Well, there may not be, but remember, the NDP is pretty much at its lowest for a very long time.
Yeah,
and you find NDP. Well, the last person that crossed the floor was an NDP.
Yeah.
So the confidence in the party's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I think his priority, and he's speaking of that, his priority is to kind of reestablish the NDP. Remember, this happened to the Liberals and Conservatives in years past too. Conservatives were wiped off the map nearly completely after Mulroney. Yeah. And the Liberals too were taking a big shellacking, too, when Harper came in. So there's the other parties have gone through this too, and now it's time for the NDP to rebuild itself, right? And so they have to have the rallying points. That's his priority. Sooner or later, he'll get himself a seat, and then that will get him privileges in Parliament. But until that happens, he's got a big job ahead of himself. Yeah. Now, one of the big jobs he has ahead of himself is that he's bringing up issues that have almost nearly been forgotten for the meantime, and that is issues of the environment and inequity in our society, at least financial inequity in our society.
Yeah.
But he's come on strong.
But isn't that the traditional stomping ground of the NDP in policy terms?
We're almost not hearing much of it anymore because of the geopolitical and tariff things going on. It seems to be lowered down the priority of most of the left-leaning parties right now, because they have other things they have to concern themselves with before they get back to that. But he also, one of the most contentious things he's talking about here is he's going back to the environmental thing. This is where he's running into trouble with the other NDPers. Strong NDP, Alberta has a strong NDP movement. It either has a strong conservative movement or NDP movement, and you'll find out west they kind of push the Liberals out, the in-between party, and they either vote NDP or they vote conservative. And we find that the NDP out west are not really welcoming Avi Lewis's position on this. They're advocating for more pipelines, more jobs. You see, the NDP are more traditional out there. Jobs are important. Get our people working. Jobs,
Yeah.
jobs, jobs.
Yeah.
That means pipelines. That means oil cells. That means LNG. And then Avi Lewis is speaking, oh, we got to do this environmental thing. Well, Avi, I think you're going to find that people like a paycheck first. Then they think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the NDP out west are firmly in that camp. Yes, we're going to provide oil and gas the cleanest way we can, but we need these jobs. We need this money coming into our province. So they're going to be, but Avi Lewis has said, I want everybody in the same tent so we can discuss it, so we can come to some sort of consensus. So it is a long road for the NDP, I see.
It's a very long road, especially since they don't have a leader in the House right now, right? It makes their life much, much harder. But again, I would also say that as of right now, unless there's some traction behind their new leader, chances are that NDP could lose. If an NDP MP stood down, I think they could lose. They could lose that seat.
Well, we see now the folly. We see now the folly. We see now the folly of Jagmeet Singh's approach. He backed the Liberals way too much. He watered down the effects of the independence of the NDP, and so they were ignored when it came time to election.
Yeah.
And yet they're not anywhere out of any kind of trouble at all, because I know those NDPs that are sitting on their bench, there are going to be a few of them wondering, I'd be much more effective on the other side of this aisle if I just crossed the floor, as one of the NDPs has, and a couple of conservatives too. There is this shift away from idealism to practical pragmatism, objectivism, and which I kind of think we're well overdue for that, because we got to pay the bills and get people working.
Well, the other thing to note, of course, is we've got 3 weeks to these upcoming by-elections that the Liberals are expected to win in each of them.
I think it's only around 2 weeks now, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Sorry, my apologies then. You may well be right, yeah.
I think it's April 13th.
April 13th, yeah, it would be 2 weeks, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. There we go. All right.
Which was pretty much a sure Carney a majority. Nothing's going exactly the way it should, according to Hoyle. The Liberals were in. Justin was on his way out in a big, hard way. And Poilievre was going to be our next man. And I just thought that's the cycle of life. You get the Liberals, you get the Conservatives, you get the Liberals. But boom, Carney comes in. He adapts just about everything the Conservatives were talking about. He's a conservative in a liberal suit kind of sometimes. And he just stole the thunder. And I think he continually will. I mean, and he gets away with doing a budget of $72 billion deficit. Who gets away with that? Mm-hmm. So I don't know about Avi Lewis and where he thinks he's going to get the money for what the things he wants to do. We shall see. But if he speaks in any way, if he's anywhere near his grandfather and his father's ability, we'll hear more about him. Probably for the betterment of Canada.
I know nothing about this gentleman as of right now, and I wish him well. Obviously, anybody who's got who comes in as leader of a political party has got an absolute mountain to climb. For the NDP anyway.
He's a conservative in a liberal suit. In many ways, like he's just a practical guy, and that's what we need. We need some pragmatism, right? We have to find the solutions that we need work. We need to put our people to work. We need to pay down our bills and try to, reestablish trade networks and all these things. But it's got to come down fundamentally. Gone down to the average person. What can we do for the average person? How much better can we give him healthcare, him or her healthcare? How much better opportunities can we afford them in employment and things like that? And what better education can we give the children? Those things.
Yeah.
And then build from there.
Yeah. Okay. Dave, Dave, I want one of these. I want one of these. I want the Trump Sharpie, the black Sharpie for that is. I want one of these. You know, he gave me this sales speech that was so mind blowing about how to sell a Sharpie. I mean, it's the simplest thing. Nobody has to sell Sharpies, but yeah, he made me want to buy the Donald Trump Sharpie. But
that's kind of funny because many years ago I remember the people, like, they were signing these things with a pen, and I thought to myself, why don't they use something bolder? That would be back about back in the 80s. And along comes Trump with he can't sign anything that isn't bigger than anyone else's on the page. I think if Xi Jinping signs the document with a blunty, which is a big wide one, makes a bigger character than his, he'll need a blunty of his own. But right now the Sharpie's big enough, and I don't know. It's all over the Epstein files. Anyway, we know that Sharpie signature is, and that's something that's kind of almost gone off the front page too.
Yeah, well, that was part of the plan, wasn't it?
We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. He gets off on these tangents. The Sharpie, the other day when he was on the Air Force, like they were the war, of course, the war and the economy and all that, and how it's going on. And what's he do? He brings out a big picture of how he expects his ballroom to look. I mean, absolutely none of the reporters there were too interested in the ballroom, but he made them listen to it. He brings out the big poster of his ballroom and starts talking about how tall it's going to be and how wide it's going to be and how much gold is going to be in it or whatever he wants, right? But oh my God. So, wow. If you're a reporter in there, what are you going to do, right? You got to listen to it.
I actually did wonder though. It was a brilliant sales presentation for the Sharpie. What was that looked as if it was a very serious meeting that was going on there that he interrupted.
I don't know. It's a very, very strange government we have in the United States right now. My prediction is it will be destroyed in 2028. It'll become. I think the Republicans that will want to take his position will dial it back to something more traditional because people don't know what the heck's going on there. We found that that nobody knows what's going on in there, and the Republicans are constantly trying to explain away his methods and stuff like that. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think he's going to be not impeached, but set aside by his own party, and I feel that's going to happen this year. I don't know if the Republicans are brave enough to do it this year, but they're going to get rid of him.
Yeah. All right.
Because the Sharpie is what's so important to him.
Okay, hundreds of U.S. nurses, according to NPR, hundreds of U.S. nurses chose Canada over the U.S. under Trump.
I couldn't open that article, the first one you put on there, so I didn't. I guess you re-put it on there. I didn't see that, but
yeah, I put it further later on. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I couldn't read that one, so I don't know what's going on there. I tend not to believe articles like that right off the bat. I'd have to look it in. I don't know if it's anything to do with Trump at all. Nurses may be coming up here because we need them. And we may have applied, say, hey, nurses down there, come on up here. That may be the reason. We don't know if it has anything to do with Trump or not, really. What did the article say? Why would it have anything to do with Trump?
I don't know that they're necessarily. You see, I get that as well. talking that none of these nurses were talking about, well, it said to leave president. This is the words of the journalist who's saying they packed up their belongings, moved 2,000 miles to British Columbia to leave President Trump's America. That's the journalist word, not their word, right?
That's cheap journalism.
It is.
That's pretty bad. Like again, President Trump's America.
Yeah.
It may have nothing to do with Trump at all. It may have to do with many different factors here. And that's, we talked about that hit piece last week on Doug Ford that took a perfectly good article on how Canadians are feeling kind of depressed.
Yeah.
And then injected Doug Ford into it to make it a hit piece on him. Well, this might be the same thing. As much as I dislike the orangutan, I don't think we can blame the migration of nurses on him.
No, I don't think so either, to be quite honest. It's saying more than 1,000 U.S. nurses have been approved to work since last April in Canada. But again, Canadians have been, not just Ontario, we know we've been searching out for nurses and doctors all over the place. We need them in almost every county or region of Ontario. I know the same I've seen articles published about that in both Alberta and British Columbia. So I know that there's dramatic needs for nurses and doctors here in Canada. And of course, the obvious place to recruit them from is the US. It doesn't mean to say that every American or, every American nurse or doctor is going to come gladly moving to Canada. Many of them will not. Many of them will not be suited for Canadian life at all.
Well, the thing that it doesn't mention here is many of them could be worried about their immigration status. A lot of the healthcare workers in the United States are, a lot of the healthcare workers in the United States are foreign born. Mm-hmm. They're Hispanic or Jamaican or something else.
They don't even cover that here.
No, they don't touch it. And that might be part of the issue. Some of them might be worried about getting thrown out. So making a move.
As you say rightly, this is another one just indicating that they're talking about a lot of nurses coming north to Canada to take up work. And that may or may not be due to the arrival of Donald Trump last year on the political scene. It may have nothing to do with it. It's exactly the same as the piece we were covering last week about how bad Doug Ford was because of some unrelated thing.
Well, there's a problem. Of course, they still use the standard measures down there, ounces and pints and all that. And if you have a nurse up here taking your blood, she might take a gallon instead of a liter. You never know. You might get things mixed up. But the problem I see is another stupid article, and I was kind of happy about NPR of late because they seem to be shifting back towards more responsible reporting. They were, a few years back, they were the social justice warriors of reporting, and I had counted on them for reasonable news for many years. And when that started, I just was pulling my hair out. But now they're shifting back to that kind of thing. And so really, when you put an article out there, you have to say why they're leaving Trump's America. I mean, to put Trump's America is the wrong thing to do. They're leaving America. Is that because of Trump? Because why is it? Right. But Trump's America, that implies they're leaving because of Trump, but there is no evidence or anything else in the article that would sustain something like that.
No.
So that, I think, is poor journalism, and I deride it right here. Why put Trump's America instead of America? And if it's because of Trump, give me the evidence why.
And again, a lot of what is said in here is about about recruitment. It is more implying that Canada's got a desperate need for nurses, and it's
Well, that's what I said at the beginning.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
what I said at the
exactly what
beginning.
they're saying in here. Canada's got a desperate need for nurses and doctors and the like, and that them just filling the gaps they've got with Americans, and Americans largely fulfill the need that they need anyway because of the fact speak the same language, speak the same accent, more or less, right?
Well, you know what? They're not going to go anywhere unless they're going to be paid better or paid at least on par.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that attracts them up here, and it's
Well,
probably
the other
and
alternative
there's
is
a lot of
they,
private hospitals. There's all the private medical facilities down there that don't pay that well.
yeah,
So you know, if you are working for a hospital, a high-end hospital, you're going to be paid well. You're not going to go anywhere. But if you're working for other lesser hospitals, and they're rated down there, A, B, C, D, and so on. If you're working in a D hospital and you're not getting paid as well as the person working in the A hospital over there, what are you going to do? Well, I got my credentials. I can go up north of Canada and get a better wage than I'm making here. I think financial reasons are probably the most important reason in this particular case.
I think
it's got
so.
nothing at all to do with Trump.
No, and in fact, actually, many of those people who've had 3 or 4 years experience in said hospitals might well find it better to move here where their employment prospects are better. They work for a national, well, a regional healthcare system, and their pay's pretty much guaranteed, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I hate stuff like that. Like I said before,
yeah.
Somebody's writing an article about nurses going to Canada to respond to the need in Canada, but couldn't help putting Trump's America.
Yeah,
and I really, it bothers me incredibly. The way in which words are used for an impression, to make an impression. You get like. I'm out. I want objectivity. I want objectivity, right? That's what I want out of my journalism. I want objectivity.
That's what we're trying to provide here.
Not somebody introducing a little bit. I don't want Fox in NDP, in the NRP, right? Not National Public Radio or PBS. I don't want leftist versions of Fox filtering into the news reports there. You know, it just bothers me. Anyway, what else we got?
Yeah, okay, well, moving on. Spain has removed its ambassador from Israel in protest of the Iran war.
Yeah, Spain has been one of the most vocal and probably one of the most bravest, along with South Africa. It's one of the most brave ones to stand up to Israel. No one else seems to have the courage to stand up to Israel with Gaza and what's happening in Iran right now. We might complain, but we complain very quietly. We don't want to be called anti-Semites and all that other stuff. But the overreaction of Israel to Gaza is astonishing. They've killed 70 people for every one that got killed in October by a handful of radicals. And it was Netanyahu's fence that fell down so easily too. So that's another factor there. But aside from that, Spain has been Spain and also Ireland, but Spain has said that's it. We're pulling our ambassador out, and we're going to just leave a consulate there in Israel. We're not going to deal with them. You can't have any kind of weapons. Any kind of weapons or weapons support systems or anything else that we've traded with you before. That's going to cost Spain some money too, but it's based on a principle. You don't find principles much anymore in politics. So I kind of admire that. I don't see the United States or Canada or a lot of other countries having near the backbone that Spain has had right now. It will cost them too much politically, I guess. But Spain is going ahead. So I doff my hat to the Spanish. They're actually putting up. They're putting up, not just shutting up or just not talking. You know. when you do the numbers, the cost of living is still cheaper to live in the U.S. If you're employed. Yeah, we don't know though. In this particular case, somebody's obviously, if they're moving up here, it's going to be for a reason, and it might be the reason that and we're talking again of the nurses here. It might be because the prospects are better. Yeah, the cost of living is cheaper, but what about their wages? And what about the assurances of public medicine? That's another thing. There's all number of factors that may draw the nurses up here. I suggest that a lot of them they're probably worried about their immigration status. Some of them. That's maybe why some of them are moving up here. I think it's maybe just a more of a stable thing. There may be a few of them leaving for political reasons, but I find that
Small
would
number.
be a very small minority.
Yeah, small number. I think small number going for political reasons. Of the tens of thousands that are coming, maybe a few hundred have kind of said, yeah, well, I've had enough of the Trump government. And that's about it, right?
Yeah, because we've heard everybody was going to move out of the U.S. if Trump got into power. Well, we found a lot of university professors coming up here and other things like that in academics, but most people didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They stayed exactly where they were.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Any more on Spain?
Only that Spain is really putting themselves out there. That's going to draw the angst of the United States too, which does not like to admit the fact that Israel oversteps its bounds. The United States protects Israel in all things diplomatically. You could have the rest of the world voting against Israel, and they will sustain Israel in the UN. They will protect it, give it cover, give it as much money as it needs. Right now, the United States is pouring, just might as well have just a trough that they keeps filling up from Israel because of the weapons that it's using, the weapons that Israel is using are bought in the United States, but they're bought with U.S. money. Yeah. So basically here, we're going to give you $14 billion and you have to buy your weapons from us. In other words, the taxpayer actually is just paying for it and giving it to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a very brave move on the Spain's part, but they might find a backlash from the U.S.
Of course, there'll be tariffs next week on Spain in the U.S. from the U.S.
Yeah, or Trump will demand that Spain become the state of America.
Okay, moving on. Pakistan is still prepared to host the U.S.-Iranian talks in the coming days as Trump is deciding what he's going to be doing. This is according to CNBC.
It's very unusual. Like Trump likes to use the chaos method where he says one thing one day and changes his mind the next day, back and forth and upside down, confusion. Nobody knows where he stands or what he's talking about. Today he's giving them a 2-day reprieve. Today, the other day he's giving them a 5-day, and now he's giving them a 10-day. And is he chickening out or isn't he? He's bringing in all kinds of troops and saying, well, we're getting close to a deal, but he's bringing more and more ground troops in. That makes it
but
much more likely that they're going to do.
In a way, right. If you're dealing with a deal, bring troops in just to back you up, just in case it doesn't go your way.
Baloney. I think he intends to use those troops, and it's all a smokescreen. Just like all the ships were brought in, there was many pundits out there, military ones that I listened to, and they all said the same thing. There's no way he's bringing all that stuff into the Gulf without any intent of using it, because if he doesn't use it, it shows weakness. And of course, he's being pulled around by the nose by Netanyahu, who finally found a fool enough to go after Iran, and so Netanyahu's leading the charge here in directing what's going on. And Netanyahu wants to continue the war forever. He doesn't care how much American blood and treasure he uses. He has his own objectives. And if he's got the convenient useful idiot, as they call it, as Trump, and he's just manufacturing ways in which Trump keeps going. Trump will invade. I have a feeling that he's brought those troops in. They're not enough there to do any major invasion, but there's lots in there that can do a lot of raiding and perhaps securing the Straits of Hormuz or securing Karg Island. They do that thing. And I think there's two places by which Iran lets its oil out into the world. There's a port on the Arabian Sea, which is outside the Straits of Hormuz. About 10% of the oil goes through there. Karg Island, 90%. If they take both those places, they would have a choke on Iran's oil. But on the other sense of it, that Iran can still control the Hormuz Straits and restrict the amount of oil going into the world community and the world economy. Right now, that is the biggest issue. Go ahead.
Well, according to breaking headlines on CNBC, Trump has threatened Iran with destroying their wells.
Who has?
Trump.
Trump has
threatened the U.S. Says the U.S. will destroy Iran's oil wells if they need to.
He won't do that. He'd be an absolute idiot to do that. Right now, what you need is more oil into the world economy, not less. If you destroy Iran's oil fields, Iran is going to start destroying the other oil fields in the Persian Gulf. Right? The ally of the United States is Saudi Arabia. The ally of Qatar is the United States. The ally of the UAE is the United States. They have who do you think they're going to fight? I know. You know. So he would be an insane.
I don't think that's a valid headline there by CNBC.
No, he's huff and blustered. He's talked about knocking out the electrical infrastructure. Do you know how many people he would kill by doing that? How many people it would cause to suffer?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Millions of people.
Yeah, millions, I know. Yeah.
Okay, millions of people will suffer.
That isn't exactly what you would call helping Iranian insurgents, oppositions gain control of the country.
Yeah, they're just like, it would just be massively foolish to knock those things out. Look what happened. Look what happened when Israel bombed the gas fields in the Persian Gulf. There, the ones that belonged to Iran. Iran turned around and bombed the gas fields of Qatar. All of a sudden, you had a massive reduction of liquefied natural gas coming out of Hormuz because of those two things.
Yeah,
Israel doesn't care, but the United States should, because it affects their bottom line. It will affect their economy if the oil and gas doesn't get out there. That's the reason why they're letting Iranian oil out, and they're desanctioning Russian oil, so that there's at least some oil in the system. A lot of this stuff is very foolish. I don't know. I really don't know the mental state of Trump, though. That's my problem. He might do anything. He doesn't really care about the suffering of people. Right now, he hasn't offered Cuba any oil at all. He's just choking them or strangling them. He has him by the. He's got them. Like you say, look, you want oil? I'll give it to you. But right now, he's going to let the Russians drop some oil off there. I don't know. I think he's losing his mind.
All right. Yeah. Okay. And moving on about this is that basically the Pentagon has stated that it's readying for weeks of U.S. ground operations in Iran. But I think if they go in, we're not talking weeks, we're talking years.
Yeah. Well, remember, it was supposed to be a quick Iraqi war. The Iraqi war is That's another one that the U.S. was dragged in by Israel. Israel nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged the U.S. about hitting Iraq. And after they hit Iraq, they wanted them to hit Iran at the same time. But they did that. And what happened? It wasn't the quick war that they thought it was.
No.
They demolished the army pretty quick, but then got stuck in a quagmire. They got to get out of the Gulf as fast as they can. Find some reason to say that they won, and then leave.
He's already said these won 3 times.
Yeah, he's already won. He just says he wants a complete victory, but I want more of a win. Well, how could you have more of a win when you've got a complete victory?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm hoping there aren't any ground operations, because I think that will be bad for the whole world economically.
Well, anytime I look, gas is almost $1.70 a liter right now. Thank you very much for the short-term pain. The guy's the saddest. Thanks very much for the short-term pain that's getting a little longer every day. Yeah, and the American public is told by, if you listen to Fox, oh, they're terrible. The American people know that we have to have this short-term pain for long-term gain. Oh, you know that things are going to be much, much better. And this business about them having a missile and enough and a bomb, an ability to make a bomb, is just ridiculous. Their own CIA reports say that they're 10 years off that if they started today. And they're not starting today, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Democratic Senate candidate leapfrog opponents to surge to victory in primaries in Illinois, primarily because she's looking at anti-ICE position and pushing for a $25 an hour minimum wage.
Wait, I'd like to just talk about the other issue for a moment. Get back to that. What we don't understand here is we have our oil and gas and everything is much more expensive, so we're worried about that.
Yeah.
But if you go into Africa, where they are relying particularly on fertilizer, not just the oil and the gas, the fertilizer. If they don't get that fertilizer, they're not going to have really good yields out of their farms. That means they're not going to be able to feed as many people as they're supposed to. That is essential. That is a life and death thing there. And dumbass Trump don't know anything about that. He don't care. He don't care about how many Africans are going to die or suffer because of this. Mm-hmm. The Indians too. They haven't had enough natural gas that to help them out. Their economy is going to go down. Who's going to suffer? The poor person. The poor person is going to suffer. That's who's going to suffer. The poor person around the world. In Thailand and Malaysia and all these other places, they've had to reduce the amount of power, reduce the amount of what people could do, drive, or anything. Their economies are being severely hurt. And what I'm pointing out again, over and over again, poor people will suffer the most. They are the ones who will starve. They are the ones that will go without because of some foolish war in the Persian Gulf. So that's the point.
Just to let you know, I'll be dialing in at 12 on Your City, Your Voice. So will you be there?
Yeah, I'll be there.
12 o'clock, remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I messed that up a couple times now. Yes, we did. We did cover the NDP and their election.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
And we did it awesomely.
So I'm talking about this Illinois Senate candidate who's basically anti-ICE and pushing for a $25 minimum wage, who's actually surged ahead and taken the
Oh, well.
Okay. Looks like we've lost Dave. Okay, so what I was saying is the Democrat Senate candidate leapfrogged her opponents for a surge to victory in the primaries for her as Senate candidate in Illinois. And the interesting thing is about this is that, of course, $25 an hour. That's obviously a very left type move, and the anti-ICE thing is a very it is really covering what is going on in America today at the other side. Okay, so there we go. Hey, Dave.
I had to come back. Yeah, I just
Yeah, yeah. So I was just saying this lady Juliana Stratton, who won the Senate nomination from the Dems, is quite a bold move because she's looking at putting up minimum wage. She's also looking at anti-ICE, fighting ICE.
I think basically what they're suggesting there in the article is the she got she got in because she was the boldest in speaking out against ICE.
Yeah,
Although her opponents were also against ICE, they weren't nearly as vocal, or they had a much more easy sort of a halfway measure against ICE. They were against them, but not so vociferously as she was, and that's what made the difference. Because ICE has got a terrible reputation there
yeah,
in
yeah.
her jurisdiction, so they want anything that's anti-ICE is good for them. We find too that we might find a lot of problems for the Republicans coming up. It was thought that the Republicans will lose the House, which is typical in in a year where the president is one party and the House will convert to the other. That's what the American voter usually does. But we find that the Senate may be at risk as well too. If that's the case, then Trump will definitely be impeached. But in any case, we find a lot of Republicans dropping out of the ballots going forward. They're going to be dropping out of. They're not going to run again because they're afraid of the tsunami of votes against them. Basically, that will be coming up. They don't expect to do too well in the midterms.
Well, and add to that the fact that there was anti-Trump no Kings protests this weekend in a lot of American cities, which has again brought up the anger of the Iranian war by the American people to the forefront as well.
Yeah, I just read a thing when I was Trump says, "Oh, thank you very much. I'm still your president." When these protests came, I was afraid some king was trying to take my place. But yeah, so we see the Republicans see that. Like Trump could say that's of no concern, but when the Republicans look out the window and they see 8 million, I think it was closer to 9 million people out on the street demonstrating all over the United States. I mean, that's quite an effort. You don't get that kind of you don't get that kind of turnout just anywhere. And this is the second or third no, or at least the second big one, no Kings demonstration. They are
led of course, by many people put it as the leading rally being the one that happened in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we find this authoritative reaction by the Republicans and MAGA. However, and people are balking against it. People like their democracy. They don't like to be told what to do, not by pronouncements by the king, who will say, "Okay, an extra 10% tariff on Canada because they ran an ad in a ball game." God, what a thin-skinned fool! He makes a decision based on an ad.
Well, and the National Republican Congressional Committee has basically criticized these rallies. Maureen O'Toole was the spokesperson for that, and said these rallies are hate America rallies.
Well, that's not really buying much credibility, is it? It's more like a love for America of a lost America where people had more freedom. But let me point this out too. Although once Trump's out there, and I expect that he won't last a year, and I hope he won't, but um, when he's out, the left has to remember where they were going. Before Trump got in, they were moving towards a censorial area where you could only say this and you could only say that, and there was a rewriting of history to what I mean, and you had speakers in universities being interrupted by the left wing faction because they didn't like what they were being said there. So I warn everybody: beware of the left and beware of the right. Get back into the center. Those fools on the far right and the fools on the far left will take your democracy away from you. If it isn't Trump, it'll be somebody else on the left. So that's my sort of warning. Watch out. The farther left you go, the farther right you go, you end up in the same place. You end up with gulags or concentration camps, one or the other.
I love this this words but that you say, Ricky. Everybody wants to rule the world. That's a song title, isn't it?
Yeah. Everybody, well, including me. Yeah, they say no kings unless it was me. I think that's pretty much it. Everybody thinks, like all these politicians. Oh, no kings.
I'm sorry, I'm the king. Cousin Charles has a problem with you saying that.
Yes.
No, honestly, pay some respect to Cousin Charles.
Oh, Cousin Charles. Well, get your brother out of those brothels, man. Anyway, so I got to go because I got to do the bingo thing. Absolutely. And I would like to just mention Gaza again, like I always do. Don't forget Gaza. It's off the front of the paper, but the people there are still suffering very much. And of course, there is another war going on right in southern Lebanon right now. That's going to make it even more difficult for the people in Palestinian areas, and I really don't like that kind of things. Clearly, you do rule the world, Dave. All the free meals you get. Okay. All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu.
All right.
Gotta go.
Have a great day, everybody.